Hello and welcome. This is Beyond the Lane. My name is Mark, and we have got some things to talk about. So, going on from the reaction to the Eze transfer going completely and utterly tits up, and us getting sniped at the end by Arsenal, we're going to have a look at 8 potential players that we have been linked with that might actually ease the pain and suffering of us, the Spurs fan base. Some of which I agree with, others I'm not entirely convinced by. There's one or two other players I might throw in at the end, which might be an option, but whether anything comes off of it, we'll see. So first up, Savinho. Now, I know this one looks as if it's dead in the water, but I suspect if we give them what they want for the player, they'll let us enter into negotiations with the player and we can agree a deal on that one. They're looking closer to 70 million to sign him. Um, and as I've said on other videos, there is one director blocking this transfer from happening. And I think if we hit that 70 million mark or very close to it, then I think that we can get a deal done and bring this player in. An exceptionally exciting talent. If we look at his game stats for last season and just in the Premier League, 29 games, 1 goal, 8 assists. Very, very strong player. Played 48 games in total across all competitions for City. 21-year-old Brazilian. The potential is limitless for this guy. Certainly from what I've seen of him last season. Even looking back at some of the reels on YouTube for his time at Girona, a really exciting talent. Is it a lot of money player for that age? Absolutely it is. But I think at this point with the Eze transfer going down the tubes, the failure to sign Gibbs, Morgan White, and we'll not talk anymore about that saga. We really, really need to get a statement signing in, and I think that is the big one the fans want us to see us get done. And apparently the deal isn't completely and utterly dead, so I think we just need to stump up the readies and get this one done and over the line. The player wants to move. Pep has said that he doesn't want to see him go, but as we've seen with McAtee and Palmer the season beforehand, he's not going to stand in the way of young players if it means they're going to get games. One of the options in terms of this one may very well be that we take him on a season-long loan with an option or an obligation to buy. It might be the best option, especially when there's only 13 days of the window left. We might struggle to get anything over the line by that if we try and do what we've done on this one, on the Gibbs, where we have taken 2 weeks to try and get something over the line and then fail miserably at the end. So for me, I think Savinho is our number one target on the list to try and push that one through. Moving on, player number 2 is Nico Paz at Como in Serie A. So a lot in and around this. Obviously, the manager is a former Arsenal player, so whether he's wanting to see us strengthen ourselves by bringing in a player of Nico's talent and ability, it's yet to be seen. Como, the owners are exceptionally wealthy, so they're not necessarily requiring or needing to sell a player in which to bring money or enhance their own squad. But even if we were, I think the initial bid that we were supposedly had put in and had rejected was around 35-40 million. But the conversation at the moment is to try and even get a bid accepted. We'd be looking at something in the region of 60 to 80 million. So in terms of that kind of spend and value, you're looking at something in the region of Savinho. Considering his game time in Serie A last season, he played 35 games, scored 6 goals and 8 assists. So in terms of contributions, it's strong. So you're kind of looking somebody in a similar vein and thread to Savinho, very similar ages as well. So again, another player who has a very high ceiling in terms of where he could go in his career. Um, Spanish, Spanish born, but I think he plays for Argentina, or he's played games for Argentina. So in terms of that, you've got potentially you could have Romero whispering in the ear and softening him up to a move to Spurs if things were to go that way. Whether or not we do come in and put a bid in for that player, I don't know. But certainly the stats look good for last season. I know Serie A isn't looked as strongly as the Premier League, but in terms of what he can provide, he certainly looks good for it. And the stats certainly for a player of his age and having played those games, the goals and the assists certainly look good and would help seal the gap in terms of what we're missing due to injuries at the moment. And I say a player right up there in terms of what he could provide alongside Savinho. I really like Savinho in terms of what he offers in terms of driving the ball forward and all the rest of it. So I think very similar to that. Another player we've been linked on and off with, but there's not really been an awful lot of talk until now, where he is being seen as one of the favourites for us to move for, is Magnus Akalushe at Monaco. 23-year-old is valued at around 48 million from what I believe. Playing in League One. If we look at his contributions from the season before there, 32 games, 5 goals, and 10 assists. So the numbers look really, really good. He's played one game this season and scored as well. So, he's continuing on that vein of form. A slightly older player. So, I think he's a French international as well. I need to double check that. So the guy's experienced. Monaco are a pretty decent team. So, but again, the French league isn't quite as strong as the Premier League, and it's whether or not he would be able to make that transition from there to here. The thing is, you can say all this stuff, but it's you never know whether they can or they can't until they get here, and actually can they or can't they? I mean, we've had a number of players come across from the French league and have done fine in the Premier League, so you would hope that he would be one of those guys as well. But again, the stats again look very good for what we need out of an attacking midfielder. Those 5 goals and 10 assists last season, that's 15. It goes a long way towards contribution to that 60 goal gap that we've already talked about. So if we could get him for around 40 to 50 million, I think that would be an acceptable deal. But if we got him in, we would still need to look at bringing in somebody else in. But definitely a contender, I think, for someone that we should be looking at trying to get a deal done for him. Another one, and it's not, there's a lot being said about the player, and he's highly rated, I think, across the board, is Tyler Dibbling at Southampton. In the Premiership last season, his stats are terrible. 33 games, 2 goals, no assists. Doesn't really stack up for me in terms of what we need right now. I think if you could get him for lower values, then it'd be one for the future, but definitely not one for now. You're probably looking at a 50 million plus package for this guy. Everton have already had 3 bids rejected for him. The last one was a 40 million pound package, which Southampton said no to straight away. So realistically, you're looking at 50 million plus. I don't think he's worth it. I mean, when they were in the Premier League, they were talking like over 100 million for the guy. He's what, 17, 18? What's he done? His stats aren't great. We're looking at someone that can score goals, somebody can assist, and he's already had a season in the Premier League. Did he look good? Of course he did. Did Southampton struggle? Of course he did. But the markings of a good player is somebody who will shine throughout that. West Ham had a terrible season last season, and Kudus didn't do particularly well. But the season before, he actually did exceptionally well in that West Ham team. So, you could take the punt knowing full well this is what he's capable of in a team that's performing. Whereas with Tyler, for me, I wouldn't want to see him come into the club right now. There'd be too much pressure on him to be able to deliver, and I don't know if he would respond well to that. As I said, 33 games last season in the Premiership, and there wasn't really an awful lot of return in that. Certainly in the Championship this season, he's only played 1 game, no goals, no assists, know nothing about the game and how he played, but the stats are the stats, they don't lie. I think there's better, more experienced options out there for us. And if we're going to look at paying 50 plus million from, I want somebody that can come in and play and contribute now. We've already done 2 seasons of buying young talent to bring in and nurture for the future. What we need is right now, and he doesn't fit the bill for me for that. So not one for me, but it is one that we are being touted to do. One option potentially for this, and it's maybe is a future one rather than right now, would maybe be go in, agree a 30 or 40 million pound deal for him, but loan him back to Southampton for the season, and then get him in after that. But certainly not for now. Option number 5 would be Xavi Simons. Now, we've been linked to Xavi beforehand, and a lot of the talk was that he wants to go to Chelsea. Apparently, those talks have failed, or they've stalled. So RB Leipzig, you're probably looking at around 60 million to buy the player, highly experienced in the Bundesliga. Last season, 25 games, 10 goals, 6 assists. So, in terms of the stats and the numbers, definitely a player that would contribute goals to the club, whether he's scoring them or setting them up. And again, he's played one game this season, scored one, has created one. So, looking really strong in terms of that. He wants to leave RB Leipzig, and I think the Premiership is definitely his destination. Chelsea is his choice. Could we do to Chelsea what Arsenal have just done to us? Can we snipe in there, give them what they want, give him what he wants, and sign a player of exceptional talent? Got to remember he's a very young player as well. So, and he's been a very good player for a number of seasons. So, it's certainly one to consider. And, as I say, if we can go and snipe this off of Chelsea, then I think it'd be an absolute great deal. But again, it all comes down to what are the terms and conditions, and is he so hard set on wanting to go to Chelsea that he wouldn't even entertain us? There's only one way to find out, but certainly one I think up there, and certainly the stats from last season would make him a really good player for us to look at in terms of filling out the squad and actually getting in on that starting 11. Conor Gallagher, I've said in a few videos ago that I think Conor Gallagher would be a really great option for us. We did try and sign him in that first season for Postecoglou. He has played reasonably well at Atletico Madrid, but this season he has found himself down the pecking order after Johnny Cardoza and I can't remember the name of the other player going over to them. So he's found himself third in list of players for Simone's side. So we'd probably entertain a move away, certainly back to London again. So it would certainly be an option. I like him as a player. I think he's very good going forward. He's also quite defensive in some of his play as well. So has a lot of utility, I think, in terms of playing in that central midfield should we need a stopgap elsewhere. I think one of the big stumbling blocks, though, for us, if we were to try and sign him, is going to be his wages. He probably would have been on good money at Chelsea. I think 80 or 90,000 pounds. He's then went to Atletico in La Liga, and he's no doubt probably on over 100,000 pounds. So to make that move again and come to Spurs, he could be either coming in at the highest end of where our wage scale sits, or probably wanting more over and above that. And as we know, it's very difficult to convince Levy to break those wage structures. But I think we're getting to the point now there, if we have to break it to bring in players and to meet the ambitions that he's spoken about, then we're going to have to start looking at that wage structure and opening it up a bit more to be able to bring in the players that we need. Last season at Atletico, 32 games, 3 goals, 3 assists. Stats aren't particularly great if you're looking at somebody that's going to be attacking minded, score goals and create goals. However, he is a proven, consistent player in the Premier League when he was at Chelsea, and it probably isn't going to be much different if he was to come back and go into a team like Spurs. So, valuation-wise, I think he's sold for about 40 million. You're probably looking at somewhere in the region of 40 to 50 if they're looking to get him off their books and they're desperate to make that space and get a bit of money into the squad. He has played one game, although only about 45 minutes, but there was no goals, no assists. So again, at least he's had a preseason and he's getting match time, which makes a bit of a difference when you're bringing somebody in at this stage. But certainly one I wouldn't mind seeing come to the club, and he's an English player as well, so it'll help with all those kind of coefficients too. Probably the big one for me, if we don't get Savinho, I think the one we really, really should go for is Morgan Rogers at Aston Villa. I think the problem we have there is they're going to look somewhere in the region of 70 or 80 million even just to entertain it. However, experienced player, really, really good lad. I mean, he was phenomenal last season for Villa, one of their best players. I think we could steal a march on them given the fact that they have been in trouble with UEFA in terms of PSR. They've just sold Ramsey to Newcastle for 40. So that's pure profit. That goes into the column for them because he's an academy brought through player. So there's no disadvantage to that sale. If we throw 70, 80 million and get him in, let me look at his stats for last season. 37 games, 8 goals, 10 assists. That is a straight up replacement in attacking midfield for us. That almost wipes out a third of the goals that we had been missing. So to me, it's an absolute no-brainer. I think he's 24, 25. The guy's got experience. Phenomenal season at Villa last year in the Premier League. We need to make it happen. And he has played a game for Villa this season, but no goals or assists. It's just the start of the season. So when you're seeing these stats, take them however you will. But last season's stats don't lie. Premiership proven, exceptional season last year. I say we throw 70, 80 million at them and see what they say. It's certainly worth testing them. And the fact that Villa don't have any Champions League football this season really puts them in a financial pickle. Because when you look at their financial situation and the stats around and behind that, they are in real trouble. So they do need money coming in. So let's test the resolve, throw the money at them and get that player. I think he's definitely up there. I don't think if we would get Savino and him, if we were to really push hard and give the money that they're looking for, bear in mind that we are still supposedly looking at bringing in a centre half, certainly one that can play on the left hand side. But I think out of all those players we've talked about so far, he has to be the number one if we don't get Savino. I don't think we could get both. Last one, and it's not entirely one that I am keen on, as I don't think he would be a good fit for us, and I don't think he'd manage the Premier League, is Takefuso Kubo. Now, he supposedly has a release clause for £52 million. Release clause is starting to get a bit of a dirty word when it comes to our transfers this season. So, again, it's probably one of those ones that you're not going to see Daniel Levy and co wanting to try and go for. At Real Sociedad in the La Liga, problem we have here is he's right wing. I don't mean that there's political leanings. I mean that's where he plays, and we don't really need right wingers. We're kind of looking at replacements in terms of Son having left it and strengthening that left hand side. Um, I think the one thing that kind of goes in his favour is that he has played 19 European games. Last season, I think it was Europa League, 11 games, 2 goals, 2 assists. And the season before that, Champions League, 8 games, no goals, 1 assist. I mentioned him before in a previous video. It's diminishing returns season by season with him. So last season, he played 36 games, 5 goals, and no assists. So in terms of goal contributions, it's relatively poor. He is a Japanese international, so he is highly experienced. I think he was at Barcelona as a younger player. I might be 100. I might be completely wrong on that. This season, he has played 1 game for Sociedad and he scored. So it might be. It might. He might. It's a player that might work out. But from, if I recall correctly, looking at stats from 23, 24, 22, 23, they're better season by season as you go back the way than what it is going forward. He was a player at one point was being touted as world class and the potential to be world class. But as I said, season on season, his statistics get worse and worse in terms of goals and assists. So, even 48 to 52 million pounds is kind of the figures being touted, especially with that release clause. I don't think it's worth it. He's a right winger, not somewhere we're really needing to strengthen at all. The left side is where we really need somebody coming in to be able to, but also, as I say, for a number 10, you want somebody that can come and ply their trade through that middle and create goals. Papasar and Bergval are doing all right. Kudos as well is doing phenomenal. But these guys are filling a stopgap until we can find someone that can come in and do that role, so these guys can go back out into their natural positions. So those are kind of the 8 ones that we're really being linked heavily with at the moment. In terms of those 8, who do I think we should be going for? Savino is number 1. I think Morgan Rogers has to be number 2. If we don't get him, then we absolutely have to go and nail that one down and just push Villa, test the resolve. In terms of stats wise, Nico Paz would be great. Magnus Akalusha would be fantastic. I think in terms of goal contributions, great. Xavi Simons, again, another solid player, but he has his heart set on Chelsea, and if Chelsea go back into it, I think we'd just be peeing in the wind. But again, his stats don't lie. I like Conor Gallagher as a player. I think he's really solid. Excuse me, but I think we have far, far better options over and above him. But again, we know Spurs, we know Daniel Levy. It's about what can we get for the least amount of money. So unless we go back in hard and heavy, give Man City what they want for Savinho or very close. If not, hit Morgan Rogers, go to Villa, give them offer them 70 and go from there. But we need to get one of those players over the line. I've seen another couple of things today that people were talking about, and whether it's in jest or not, is it Paqueta at West Ham? Given how West Ham feel about us, I have, if you're going to go back and stir the hornet's nest, why not throw 50 million in and ask for Bowen? Um, really stir it up. But Paqueta is a really good player. I know he's missed a good bit of football with the betting scandal, but potentially a really solid number 10 option. Jared Bowen is a fantastic player as well, but I don't think you'll ever see him leave West Ham for anything less than stupid money. But if you are going to make a silly bid at West Ham after what we've already done with Kudus, then why not shoot for the stars? You might land on the moon and get Paqueta. But those are two players that I've seen. I thought, well, actually, it'd be quite interesting to see if we would even entertain it. But at the end of the day, those are the kind of options that are being looked at potentially as serious contenders for that kind of attacking number 10 role and what the alternatives are out there. And we have been linked quite heavily with some of them over the last couple of weeks. I just think we've thrown all our eggs into the Eze basket. And Arsenal have came by and knocked that basket over and smashed them all. So it'll be interesting to see where we go from here. But there's 13 days left in the transfer window. So if we don't get something in now, then we are going to struggle right up to the January window. And then by that point, if we thought we were going to be paying over the odds for players now, January, we are going to get absolutely rinsed, especially if we end up with any other injuries in the squad. I suppose on the bright side, Kulusevski will be back in probably another month, 1 to 2 months. And that'll fill that hole. But I really, really hope after this poor transfer window showing so far, Levy doesn't think that the win on Saturday against Burnley is going to be a bit of tape holding the cracks over and making sure nothing else happens on it. And if some of the rumours are believed to be true, and that is a transfer that we offered Richarlison as part of that deal, the guy has just played out of his skin over a number of important games. That opener, he ended up getting the inaugural Player of the Week in the Premier League for how well he played, as well as those two phenomenal goals that he scored. And he's probably now looking to get a new contract on the back of how others have played. So how's he going to be feeling and thinking right now to realise, hold on a minute, you're going to sell me for another player? You're going to throw me in on a trade? I've just scored 2 goals. I've just got Player of the Week. Solanke's still injured and you're looking at chucking me out there. What other striker options do we have at the club? None. They're all bloody out on loan. So again, we need to buck up our ideas. We need to go in hard and fast and actually be serious in these transfers and actually try and hit the mark in terms of what clubs are looking for. As I say, the top 3 for me would be Savinho. If we can't get him, it's got to be Morgan Rogers of Villa. And then after that, probably Xavi Simons or Akaluche at Monaco. Those two would be tied for third for me. Probably more Akaluche simply because he's probably more attainable than what Simons is, because if Chelsea pick up their game in terms of negotiations with the player and the club, then that's where he's going to go. He's already stated that would be his preference for a move. So I guess we'll wait and see. As I say, 13 days left in the window. Still time to get things done, as long as we don't go at a snail's pace, as what we have done in every other transfer so far. And hopefully this time we'll learn our lessons. We'll try not to make it as public, but I don't think it would have been us that's kind of been highlighting all that information in terms of the Eze deal. I think that will definitely have come out from the players' camp, and certainly Steve Parish trying to drum up interest and trade in selling the player, which you can't fault them for. If you want to sell one of your best players, you want to get yourself into a bidding war simply because it enhances and increases the value you can get for that player. So I certainly don't look down on Palace for that one. But anyway, those are my options. Let me know what you think. Is there any other players out there that you think we should be looking at to fulfill that number 10 and maybe even potentially that left wing role that we need to strengthen on drop it down in the comments below. Drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.